So for my bit, I found quotes that could help link to like the different eras for our performance. So the 1950s, the 80s, and the 2000s. I found quotes from Ellen DeGeneres, RuPaul, Ian McKellen. So I found them online on like different websites. But like the main website I went to was Stonewall. And I know that Stonewall is like a big part of like the movement for LGBT rights. And they basically posted a timeline of like from all the events leading from the 40s until like the present day. So, and for like in the performance, we'd step out of like our characters, so we'd go from naturalistic to non-naturalistic, and we'd read out like a quote or a fact, like something short that would go along with it, but like it would like be non-naturalistic, so it like, you know,
like breaking the fourth wall kind of thing.
Yeah,
like coming out of our characters.
Yeah. And it would like link obviously to like the storyline that was going on in the performance. So whether it was like someone that was closeted or someone that was open, or like in the 50s where it was illegal, obviously. So yeah, that was my bit.
So when we were doing the whole process of creating our script, when we were doing the interviews, we sat down and we really decided how we wanted to portray the interviews in the groups. So obviously many groups were doing the interviews within the scripts on stage as that, but I came up with the idea to kind of have an interactive video. We kind of discussed it at first because we didn't know how it would look, and we spoke to our lecturer about it. But we thought if we had a video, it wouldn't only just obviously include the interviews in our performance, but it would be quite interactive for the audience to look at as well. So it's not just the audience focusing on us on the stage, it's also something else they can focus on. And the way I did this, I was going to collect the interviews from Mary, because obviously she was in charge of the scripts, and we were going to set up a camera, and we were going to film ourselves being the interviewer or the interviewee. We wasn't really decided on it, was we? We didn't really know which would be best, whether for us to be in the video on the big screen, asking the questions or answering them. We were going to experiment with it to really see what looks better. And the way it would be, if we were asking the questions in the video, then on stage we would answer it, and it would just kind of have a really cool effect, what we liked anyway, and it would just kind of take an element away from just staring at a performance for 15 minutes straight, and it would be quite interactive. And
we were going to do that in between each.
Yeah, because we had obviously 3 different eras. We didn't know whether we should do it right at the beginning or right at the end, and we liked, because we had 3 different eras, we'd have 3 different interviews throughout. So there'd be a scene and then an interview and then a scene and an interview, and again, I think it breaks up for the audience as well. You're still getting the important information, but it's something visually to look at.
Yeah. Kelly was kind of like in charge of like the tech side of it all. We also did like a montage situation.
Yeah, so I thought right at the start we were going to just come in on one of the scenes, and I kind of liked the idea of a montage, so just putting lots of different clips together, and I looked online for some LGBTQ videos that were already put together, and I spoke to the lecturer about it, and she said obviously we can't have it more than 30 seconds. So we all sat down and we thought, what clips could we use? Should we use it from different shows, things like that? And we thought, well, Mary came up with the idea to use the people in our class, because why did you think that would be better?
Because I just thought it's more relatable.
Yeah.
You know, we found like this really good video that had this great piece of like emotional music behind it, and then it had pictures from like 1950s of like riots and like things like that. But then it also had in between like the still images, it had like celebrities like Conor Franta and Shane Dawson, and you know, like clips from their coming out video. And I thought, you know, sometimes people in our class aren't going to know who these people are, so it's not going to have the desired effect we wanted. So we were going to use like us 3 as like Morgan being gay and me being bisexual, and like other of our classmates. We were gonna and we started doing that. We started the video in a bit, but obviously lessons got shut down and things. We started videoing, you know, just our classmates just saying like simple lines, you know, like I am gay, and Kelly was gonna cut them into that video that we found. So it was more of with the music, it was more of like a relatable video, like more of a relatable montage for people to watch.
I think as well, like, it's, you know, we all know celebrities have come out before, especially YouTubers, but I think with Mary's idea we really liked it because, you know, our class that are going to watch themselves. And I think it'd be really powerful as well, not to just use iconic celebrities that have come out before, but to use our own classmates. We think it would be really powerful, and it'd add such a good element to the performance. So obviously we did start recording, and what I was going to do was use like iMovie and put a recording of one of the students in between each clip, and that would be for maybe 30 seconds at the beginning, because we thought it's a good way to introduce the performance, and we just really liked it.
Yeah. Is it mine now?
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously, like, when we were choosing a performing style for our piece, we wanted to make sure we kept it naturalistic for the storylines related to the different eras. So obviously your 50s and 80s.
Yeah, because these are like people's real life stories.
So we wanted to take those very seriously.
Yeah.
But obviously, like when we like talking about facts and quotes, we'd break the fourth wall, and that would be non-naturalistic. But like obviously, we have to say facts that stay relevant to the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like mostly we want to keep it naturalistic, apart from like the montage and the facts. But that's mainly like how we like wanted to keep it throughout the performance.
Yeah. So one of the key things about verbatim theatre is like the ethical side of it. So I conducted the interviews through Otter, and I transcribed them because there was like errors in the words and things like that. So when I was doing that, these people need to remain anonymous, because the things that I talked about in my interview, I sure wouldn't want my parents to find out, and like their stories that they had to say isn't for anybody else's ears. So when I like transcribed them more, instead of having like some like Kelly's interview or Morgan's interview, I changed it to like interview 1, interview 2. So even these two people, so even Kelly and Morgan didn't know whose interview it was. So they don't know whose interview we were looking at, only I did. So I'm literally the only person in the whole of our process who knows who said what. So
so when we was trying to respond to the actual topic of social responsibility, we kind of thought that when we first put down our ideas, so the map that Mary showed you earlier, I don't think we really understood what to do with social responsibility. We didn't really know what topic to do, things like that. And when we fully decided what we were going to do, we responded to it in a way of, there's been such a change over the years, especially with LGBTQ and, you know, homophobic people and celebrities coming out, and there's been such a dramatic change that we just sat down and we thought the best way to respond to this is literally just bring up history. And that's why Mary thought about the timelines, because I think, again, you're bringing up the history, and obviously we did think when we do this we're going to have to be exact and what we do, and we're going to have to be spot on with the eras. But again, we liked that it was a challenge, and we thought again it'd be so much more hard hitting to just have historical facts and, you know, the eras. And I think when you actually sit down, people would watch this and they'd think, oh, this has actually happened. Like, I think when you're in a performance, it's an escape, and people forget sometimes what they're watching, but they'd watch ours and they'd think, oh, this is actually happened. I'm watching things how we've developed.
Yeah, we're through that, but we had to do a lot of research for that. Like you were talking about like the Stonewall riots. I did some interview on that, and like we found out like the person to throw the first brick was actually a drag queen. So we had to, and we were talking to our lecturer, and she said that if we were going to do it the way we wanted to do it, we had to know like everything. We had to know, you know, there's probably bits that we've missed out, but through like all this research that like we've got on the table in front of us, like we've got a lot of research, and what we put into the script is real, it's true, it's like facts, you know, it's a true verbatim piece. So
like obviously like with verbatim we wanted to bring to life like people's voices who don't always get like a voice, so like this was the perfect opportunity for people in our class or whoever we interviewed to like be so honest with us, because like they'd remain anonymous. Like they like no one's gonna find out it was them, so it was like a real chance for them to like open up about absolutely anything like related to this, which was like so like interesting to see.
And I think when you're doing something like this as well, you know, we've never done something like this before, and I think we didn't really know how to approach it, but when we were speaking to people and doing interviews, some people I found were quite like wary of what they were going to say, but when you have the trust, you have to have the trust between the interviewer and the interviewee, because it's them knowing, okay, I'm going to open myself up. They're going to open themselves up to their classmates who they might not even be close with.
I think that's made it easier. Because there's people out there who actually do verbatim as like a career, and they're interviewing people that they don't necessarily know, but because when we were interviewing each other, because we're like best friends, we were confident with each other, and being in drama, you're confident and you're comfortable around the people that are interviewing you. So we've got like loads of detail from people, stories from people they know, stories about themselves. We've got about 20 interviews, like just of people just telling us their like LGBTQ stories, and
or even if like they're allies, like they supported, like how
like
they
Kelly,
it,
and like people who are not out yet, and that made the process a lot easier, I think, for us to be able to. And we were quite lucky actually that our interviews kind of, the stuff that each person talked about kind of fit in with the certain era. Like somebody, like I remember I talked about not being out to my family, and so did another person, and that kind of fit in with like the 1950s style. So I think our process, that was basically our process of what we wanted to do, and our idea of having the montage first, and then one of the interviews, like we would take like an actual interview that we conducted and say it word for word, and then we'd have like a 1950s scene, like storyline, and that was about a girl who was gay, who came out to her friends, who basically turned their backs on her, and like it was taken mainly from my interview of like one of their friends wrote their parent a letter saying, oh, your daughter's gay, and it all kicked off in their family. So that was our 1950s scene, and then we had like a 1980s interview, and then so on, the same process. So if we were to perform it, that's how it would go. And like as far as the lighting's concerned,
very minimal.
We're not obviously getting judged on lighting, so we didn't want to it's a very serious piece, so we didn't want to, a lot of the time you can use tech and lighting and hide behind it, and we wanted it to be quite real and raw, so we just had like normal house lights, like just like a wash, and just a video, and that was it. So that was our process. I think that's all. Anybody else got anything to say?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.